So, this is episode 2, or the second installment, whatever you want to call it, documenting my path. And I thought I would do a little catch up on the things that I've been doing so far. I wanted to find some sort of writer's group, some sort of support system, some sort of area for feedback. And I went across Coursera and I found this course, Write Your First Novel. Perfect. Here's the instructor, the university that it's associated with, and I guess some of the other things, like at the end, what you will learn. I guess you will learn to write your first novel. Perfect. So I'll write you guys, or bring you guys up to speed on going through this course. So we go here to week 1. So pitch your novel was the first thing that we did. So you wrote like a pitch or a little summary quickly. I put in 3 into my submissions that were quite long that I wanted to get some feedback for. One, this Future Angels working title is a short story I was working on. Dream Machine is something I've thought about for a long time, definitely a novel. And Victor is the one that I decided to work on. So I will just read you guys this ideas thing. Yeah, great. So Victor just finished his final high school exam and he's home alone thinking about the future. He plays out the path his life will follow. Finish university, get a job, fall in love, get married, the whole and death does us part thing. He pauses, uncomfortable, then continues. Children, raise them, they leave for school, grow old together. His chest tightens. He tries to avoid the conclusion, and then you die. He can't breathe, he passes out. When he awakes, he cannot shake the sour feeling from his body at this conclusion. He determines the only logical response is to dedicate his life to the possibility of technological life extension. In adulthood, he begins realizing his quixotic dream and shares it with the love of his life. There are complications and she does not survive. The corporation that he works for blocks him from all information and he must struggle with his mortality and humanity as he sets out to discover the truth. He must plead with an old friend, jealous and furious at what he did. He must survive a more powerful enemy who is devoid of communication and reason. There's a couple other ones here, and you can see the whole format of this course is peer review. So you submit yours, and before you can get yours reviewed, you provide 5 reviews of other people's. So you can see on the side here, I got five reviews, mostly positive. Suzanne here said that Future Angels was the one she would go with because it was you know, well wrote out, and it's almost just an excerpt from the short story that I was writing. The first person also liked James, and that's from the third story as well. Somebody else liked Dream Machine. Somebody else found Dream Machine as well. They made an interesting comment. It was pretty in depth. I was pretty pleased with that. It was something I was actually toiling with the storyline that I don't think I'm going to talk about yet or now until I figure out how I'm going to do with it, because I want it to be a surprise if anybody ever reads it. So it asks us to form a writers group, so I did join one. We'll talk more about that later. Every time that we go to a next thing, there's a video. It's the instructor's pretty fun. So this is the logline. Create a logline that is basically like what you'd see on a movie, a one sentence description of the movie to catch somebody's attention. You might think of it also like an elevator pitch. So here I put a submission for Dream Machine logline. I wrote it in the near future, scientists who serendipitously created the world's most famous technology, the Dream Machine, lives through the consequences on the world and his own regrets. Powerful. And then the pitch I had for logline for the one I actually ended up doing is here. And which one is it here? An ambitious scientist struggles through unforeseeable challenges and consequences as he copes with his mortality by clinging to the belief that technologically extending his life is possible. Yeah, great. I'm not so good at these videos yet. Bear with me. We're, we're just documenting. Let's go back to this. So we did the log line, and then after the log line, I can't remember what was next. I think it's a dramatic question. So I made some notes when I was doing this with a dramatic question, and this is verbatim from the presentation. And he said, the dramatic logline, it is the question you hope to plant in the reader's mind from the outset so that virtually everything that happens in your story keeps your readers engaged to find the answer to that essential question. In an example we talked about, or he talked about, Romeo and Juliet. So this would be an example for that. We two young lovers from tribal rival families in medieval Italy make the dangerous decision to elope when their marriage is forbidden by both families. So you can kind of get an idea. And you can, as I'm flipping through Netflix now too, I'm definitely looking at the log line, kind of understanding what it's like. So I got some feedback on the old one. It was mostly positive. You know, straight to the point. I wonder what will happen with Victor was one person's. Another person said, great question that invites further exploration and reading. So it was mostly positive. And then we go to the next section, which would be to define our characters. To do like a character summary. So I have one for Victor. So I wrote, from a young age, Victor has had a difficult time getting along with others. He is generally confused by this. Most would say he just rubs people the wrong way. He asks questions and thinks about things most people don't. He comes off curt, arrogant, indifferent, dismissive, and stoic. Though the bullying and teasing, he still remains an optimist. He doesn't appreciate or understand how profound an effect the loneliness and isolation of his upbringing has had on him. He is fiercely loyal, expecting the same of others. When he is let down by a friend or somebody he trusts, someone in his tribe, he becomes extremely upset. His realization and struggle with his mortality is the core drive of his life. The only way he can keep the anxiety and panic attacks at bay is by convincing himself he can technologically extend his lifespan. He sees this as the only rational response. Often the pressure is crushing and makes all other achievements in his life irrelevant in comparison. He struggles to handle setbacks. He feels the clock ticking all the time. This pushes him to take risks, even be reckless, and manipulate and ignore those who do not support him. He just doesn't have time for them. As much as he'd like to believe he's a lone wolf, completely independent and strong, he still strives best when he has relationships with other people. He's still human, desiring the company of others and the need to develop meaningful connections. So we can see on the side here we get some some pretty positive feedback I got about this. And the first person said, I absolutely love it. Second person said, I generally want to read about him and his journey. Very well thought out character. Another person said, I can't find anything wrong with this. Yeah. So that was pretty good. So the next we go to chapter 1. So this is in this is the outline of chapter 1, which was week 2. So my submission was rather lengthy again. I guess I'll put it in here. We are introduced to Victor as he finishes his last high school exam. He leaves feeling elated. Walking home on a particular hot sunny day, he's thinking about the next steps his life will take. His summer job, and then his first year of university, completing university, getting a job, falling in love, getting married. The line, until death does us part, crosses his mind and leaves him feeling unsettled. He ignores it, carries home. Yeah, it goes on for a little bit longer. I'll post this, all these things in the bottom so you guys can read about it. I just really wanted to give you, how the work is getting done. Yeah, so I had some good feedback here as well. Somebody's like, I like how Victor is having an existential crisis in his senior year of high school. Makes him feel like an old man before his prime. Yeah, I bet Victor feels that way. What? Leslie says. I want to read this. I feel hooked. I want to know more. I want to know what he's talking about. Keep it up. Yeah, get me going. Reminder to form writers groups. The structure of your novel, which kind of just boiled down to the fact the facilitator, the professor, says that everything has a beginning, middle, and an end. The beginning, you set it up. The middle, you captivate an interest, and then the end leaves them wanting more for the next chapter, next paragraph, or whatever it is. So here I wrote chapter one. It's about 2,000, 2,500 words, so too long for this. Unless you guys like my voice, I'll definitely just make it audio. But I'll post a little link to it. I think some of the comments I got were pretty good. So yeah, so we got some good. So Edwin said, I liked the beginning of the chapter, but somewhat felt confused towards the end. Is it Victor first meeting with his mortality, like he never thought about it before? Nobody ever died around him? It seemed a bit far-fetched. I like the way you do your description. You put us in context and bring us with you. So that was good. So maybe that's something I need to work on. I have thought about that a bit since then as well. I got confused with the whole point of view changes. I don't know if it's what were going for. Sometimes it went from he, she to I, me. Again, I don't know if it's on purpose. Uh, I would like so yeah, interesting. I mean, I formatted this differently, so I guess when I pasted it over, it didn't have the italics and bolds that I did. hmm Yeah, so that was that. So one part that in my process here, when I went to review my peers' work, I can see here and go to projects I've reviewed. God damn, it's just terrible, terrible writing, and I feel terrible saying that, and I don't know what even to do. I mean, we can look at this one. What was this one? Let's look at the log line of this one. A liberal young girl gives the readers a bird's eye view of what white people were also afraid in the people were also afraid in the apartheid years in South Africa. That's going to be a tough sell. That's going to be hard, but just like I'll read a little bit of this because I'm not sure. I looked this person up. You know, they're South African, obviously. I found her on Facebook. It wasn't too difficult. But the formatting, obviously, you can see here was just ridiculous. Like something went wrong with the copy and pasting from wherever she brought it in from. That kind of, made me appreciate the structure and the formatting and how important that is. This is an example of very bad formatting and how it pulls you away from the reading. So just to read a little bit, it wasn't that easy to get a hold of the wheelbarrow, not without raising a lot of questions. I mean, what on earth does a little girl of 8 in 1967 want to do with a wheelbarrow outside her property other than mischief? Like, the parsonage is built on a large corner stand. It would have been much easier if the tool room was near a gate, then I could have got out easily with the wheelbarrow. It is a colossal house with windows everywhere. The house fills the whole yard except for the small orchard and the poultry house. I mean, how can an orchard be in a house of any type or whatever? The previous reverend and his wife had a dozen children, with just one set of twins. They say there was a De Jagger child in each grade except 7. Well, Mon and I am glad about it because now we have a big cottage for ourselves. I guess Mon is mom. I kick with my heels against the brick wall next to the garage. Mom went to the city with a pastor and his wife. I wish Joseph will also go now. The garden worker also goes to the toilets, or privy as he calls it, after lunch. So you can see, I mean, it doesn't get any better. It gets worse. So I felt terrible. I wrote a review, but I don't know. It was just discouraging. If I was expecting or hoping for more, the previous work had been done pretty well. And this guy, A Kingdom of Castle, Crystal and Ashes. I mean, he even says, I'm not a native speaker, so please tell me if there are mistakes which are too blatant. For those who speak or read Italian, there's an Italian version at the bottom. Let me tell you, there's a lot of errors. And yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot. I think, see if he wrote any comments at the bottom of this. No. Well, I even put copyright on there. Don't worry, buddy. I'm being terrible. I'm being awful. Uh, I'm not sure. Yeah, let's try to make this into something positive. It was discouraging for me, uh, either because the writing wasn't that good, or because maybe people aren't trying hard enough. Like, I don't know. I mean, these are the people that I'm getting feedback from, and I had to kind of internalize that and think about that. It kind of derailed me a little bit. This one is a series of Dear Gypsies. It's a bunch of letters that they keep writing, and it was very boring. I mean, I got to the end of it. I don't know how. So that's fine. I can be a harsh critic, but fair. And I gave all these people, just so you know, as much as I thought the writing wasn't good or the stories had struggling. I mean, the last one that we read about the white girl in South Africa, hers the story was actually the best of all three. And then I felt the way she was doing it, she could possibly pull off what she's trying to do in her log line because it was very it was soft. It wasn't poignant, and I don't think it is allowed to be poignant as kind of culturally appropriate or whatever. So I gave people a ton of feedback, and I helped correct things up a little bit. I gave a lot of suggestions. So and these are these are rough drafts, so that's fine. People's first novels, but I don't know. One good thing about reading writing that I don't think is as strong as mine, or just not strong in general, is it makes me feel better about mine. Not like in a I'm better than them kind of way, but like I have put a lot of work into it. Maybe that I do have the ability to be a good or great writer. So that's a little reassuring, I guess. Yeah. What's next here? Chapter 2. So I haven't done that yet. I worked on Chapter 2 a bit today. There was something about it not sitting right, about the storyline. So the novel that I have a very clear understanding of the last half. Like by last half, every scene kind of until the end. It's the beginning that has to pull it all in, which is what I'm struggling with. And I'm trying to rush through it a little bit too because I'm not enjoying that element of creation as much either. But I feel like it's really important to the story. So I'm tempted just to pick up my writing at a later chapter and then finish it off and then go back to the beginning and fill it in. But I'm going to later tonight, just after this video, I'll rewrite the second chapter to include kind of what I want. I actually just meditated with a notebook in front of me, and I just let my thoughts flow. And then as things came to my mind, I just wrote it down quickly and then returned until everything was out. And then I fell asleep. Fantastic. All right. All right. That's it. See you guys later.